Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to do a deep dive into one of the big 5 personality traits.
Ooh, fun.
Conscientiousness, but I think we
Yes.
need to go a little deeper than just, are you organized or not?
Absolutely.
So we're going to be looking at this really cool article from Personality NFT. And
Fun.
I have an expert here to help me sort of break down
Awesome.
all the
Boy.
different
Can't wait.
nuances of conscientiousness.
Yeah.
So let's get right into it.
Okay.
Um,
Sounds good.
when you hear that word conscientiousness,
Hmm.
what pops into your head?
Ugh.
Is it like someone with...
I think the first thing
Think
that
right
I
again.
think of is, perfectly organized desk, someone who's very organized, has a color-coded planner, always on time, never misses a deadline.
Yeah, that's kind of the
Stereotypical. Yeah, this can definitely be signs of conscientiousness.
Yeah,
But it's really so much more than that.
right.
When we think about like the deeper meaning of conscientiousness, it's about self-discipline, diligence, a drive for achievement.
Okay.
Personality NFT defines it as an individual's tendency to be responsible, organized, and diligent in their pursuits.
I like that.
And I think that that's a
that's
really
pretty good.
solid definition. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's not just the outward stuff. It's really more like the
It's the internal
motivations.
Exactly.
Okay.
And, it's not just one thing. It's actually broken down into 6 different facets.
I was going to say, it's not like a one-size-fits-all.
No, it's like a big umbrella. It's like that feeling of being capable and effective.
Yeah.
So thinking about someone who, just exudes confidence in their ability to handle things.
Mm-hmm.
They're not arrogant, but they just have this like quiet assurance. Like
Right.
they know they can get the job done.
Yeah, they've got this can-do attitude.
Exactly.
Okay, what's the next one?
And the next one is orderliness.
Okay.
And that's probably like the most obvious one, the one that people think of right away when they think of conscientiousness.
Yeah, the stereotypical one.
Yeah. This is your love of, labeled containers and alphabetized bookshelves.
So my desk is like a disaster zone. Am I doomed?
No, not at all.
Okay, good.
Like I said, it's a spectrum. We all have different levels of each of these facets.
Okay.
And there are actually ways that you can like cultivate these traits. We'll talk about that later.
Sounds good.
But let's go through the other ones first.
Okay.
The third one is dutifulness.
Dutifulness. Okay.
And this one is kind of often misunderstood.
Okay.
People think it's just about blindly following rules, but it's really not about that.
Okay, so what is it about?
It's about having a strong moral compass and, feeling the sense of obligation.
Mm-hmm.
So honoring your commitments, doing what you say you're going to do.
Right.
Not because you have to, but because you believe it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So think of someone who, like, volunteers their time for a cause they care about.
Yeah.
Even if it means sacrificing their own comfort or free time.
Right.
That's dutifulness.
That's a good example.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's next?
The fourth one is achievement striving.
Achievement strive.
Yeah. So this is all about setting ambitious goals and having that inner drive
Okay.
to reach your potential.
Got it.
So these are like the overachievers, the people who are...
But there's a healthy balance to that, right?
Of course.
It doesn't have to be like
It's not about you burn yourself out.
burning yourself out or being a perfectionist.
Right.
It's about channeling that drive in a sustainable and fulfilling way.
Yeah.
Like, think about it.
Right.
Like an athlete training for the Olympics. They have that drive to win, but they also know they need rest, recovery, balance to reach their peak performance.
That makes sense.
Okay. So what else we got?
Number 5 is self-discipline.
Self-discipline. You can't.
Ooh, that's a tough one.
I know.
Like for everybody.
We all struggle with that.
Yeah.
But this is the ability to, resist those tempting distractions and stay focused on your goals.
Yeah.
Even when it's hard. It's really the foundation for turning those dreams into reality.
Right.
So,
Okay.
yeah, it's tough.
Yeah.
But the good news is that it's like a muscle.
Oh, okay.
The more you use it, the stronger it gets.
Gotcha.
And,
Think about the feeling you get when you conquer a challenging project.
Yeah.
Or you reach a goal you've been working towards. That feeling is directly tied to self-discipline.
Yeah, that sense of accomplishment.
Exactly.
Okay, what's our last one?
The last one is deliberation.
Deliberation.
And this is the tendency to think things through carefully before making a decision.
Okay.
So highly conscientious people, they don't just jump into things impulsively.
Right.
They weigh their options. They consider the consequences.
Yeah.
They want to make choices that are aligned with their values and goals.
So they're the ones who actually read the instruction manual before putting something together.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to wing it and see what happens.
Yeah.
That's my style.
That's okay.
Okay, good.
There's room for all of us.
All right.
But deliberation is a valuable skill because it can help you avoid those rash decisions you might regret later. It's about taking that pause, reflecting, and making sure your actions match your intentions.
I like it. Okay, so we've got our 6 facets. Competence, orderliness, dutifulness, achievement, striving.
Yep.
Self-discipline, deliberation.
Yeah. Quite a mix.
It is.
And how these actually show up in someone's life can really vary. And that's where we get into the high versus low conscientiousness.
Okay.
Which is where it gets really interesting.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we talk about high versus low conscientiousness, we've really got to remember it's not good versus bad.
Right.
It's just understanding how this trait shows up in people's lives.
Okay.
How it influences their behaviors, their motivations, and just their overall approach to life.
Right. It's like any personality trait. It's a spectrum. And we all have our different strengths and weaknesses.
Right.
One thing that Personality NFT points out is that high conscientiousness isn't always linked to cognitive ability.
Oh, really?
Which I think can be kind of surprising to people.
So you can be super smart.
Yes.
But still be...
You can be a genius and still be disorganized.
Disorganized.
Absolutely.
Right.
It's not about raw brain power.
Okay.
It's about having that self-discipline and drive, those inner qualities that we were talking about.
Right.
So you could have someone with a genius level IQ who procrastinates on deadlines or just can't seem to keep their space tidy.
Right.
And then you could have someone with average intelligence who's incredibly organized, efficient, and goal-oriented.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, it really...
So the absent-minded professor, that's not...
It's not always the case.
Always true?
Exactly. So it's not just what you see on the surface.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
important to understand the nuances of personality. So let's paint a picture of what high conscientiousness might look like.
Okay.
Imagine someone who consistently meets deadlines. Even if it means pulling an all-nighter, they always show up prepared.
Okay.
Whether it's for a meeting or a social gathering, they're reliable, responsible, and often really excel in their chosen fields.
So they're the ones who always just seem to have their act together.
Exactly.
No matter what.
Yeah, they have systems in place.
Okay.
They prioritize effectively. And they just don't let those distractions derail them from their goals.
Gotcha. Okay.
But,
But is there a downside?
There can be downsides, too.
Oh, okay, I was going to say, there's got to be.
Yeah, nothing's perfect, right?
Right. So what's the downside to being conscientious?
Sometimes those strengths can become a little bit too rigid or perfectionistic.
Okay.
So imagine someone who's so fixated on doing everything perfectly that they become overly critical of themselves or others.
Right. Or they struggle to relax and just enjoy the moment. It's
So too much of a good thing.
Too much of a good thing can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's all about finding that balance.
Right.
Striving for excellence, but not getting trapped in perfectionism.
Gotcha.
So now let's shift gears and talk about low conscientiousness.
Okay.
And again, this is not a negative thing.
Right.
It just means certain areas of life might be a bit more challenging.
Okay.
So people who score lower in conscientiousness might struggle with things like impulsivity, procrastination, disorganization.
We've all been there.
Yeah, we all have those moments, right?
Okay.
And, they might find it harder to stick to schedules or meet deadlines or follow through on commitments.
Yeah.
And that can lead to frustration.
For sure.
Both for themselves and the people around them.
Right.
But
makes sense.
It's important to remember that low conscientiousness doesn't equal laziness.
It doesn't mean they're not intelligent. It just means their brains might be wired a bit differently. Okay. And they might need to find different strategies to be successful.
So it's about figuring out what works for you.
Exactly.
Regardless of where you fall on that spectrum.
We all have our own strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, okay.
And that's what makes it so interesting to explore these different traits. It helps us understand ourselves and others better.
Okay, so we've talked about what conscientiousness is, the 6 facets. Talked about high versus low.
Yep.
But I want to know, how does this all play into how someone sees the world?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something that...
Does it change their perceptions?
Personality NFT talks about a bit.
Yeah.
There's actually a really cool link between conscientiousness and perception.
Okay.
So, for example, highly conscientious people often have a keen eye for detail.
Okay.
You know, they notice things that others might miss, whether it's a typo in a document or a subtle change in someone's behavior.
So they're like the Sherlock Holmes.
Yeah.
And their day lives.
We're picking up on those little clues.
Right. Okay.
And that can be a huge asset in certain professions.
Oh, for sure.
Like detective work, surgery, editing, you know.
Makes sense.
You wouldn't want a surgeon who's overlooking tiny details during an operation.
Right.
But on the flip side, that laser focus on details can make it hard to see the big picture.
Oh, okay.
You know, they might get so caught up in the minutia that they miss the forest for the trees.
About finding that balance.
Exactly. Between
accuracy and perspective.
Yes, always.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we talked about conscientiousness and details. What about motivation?
Ooh.
You know?
Good question.
What makes these highly conscientious people tick?
What drives
That's
them?
all about external...
That's a great question.
Validation.
And it really gets to the heart of what makes this trait so powerful.
Okay.
So personality NFT highlights that there's this link between conscientiousness and goal setting.
Okay.
So highly conscientious individuals are often driven by this deep desire to achieve their goals.
Got it.
Whatever those goals might be.
So it's not just about getting a gold star or a pat on the back.
It goes way beyond that.
Okay.
It's about that internal drive, that sense of purpose that propels them forward.
Right.
And research has actually shown that this trait is a pretty strong predictor of positive outcomes in life.
Oh, wow.
Like careers, relationships, health, well-being.
So they're set up for success.
I wouldn't say destined for success,
Okay.
but they definitely have an advantage because of their ability to set goals, create plans, and stick to them. You know, they're less likely to get sidetracked or give up when things get tough. But I think it's important to acknowledge that, you know, there are plenty of highly conscientious people who might not achieve what society would traditionally view as success.
Right.
Maybe they have different priorities. Maybe their circumstances have presented some challenges.
Yeah.
So, you know, success is a subjective term. It's really about what matters to you. And then having the self-discipline and drive to go after it.
Right.
And that's what I find so inspiring about conscientiousness. It's not about conforming to some external definition of success.
Okay.
It's about having that internal compass to chart your own course.
I like it, yeah.
So it's not about following a predetermined path. It's about creating your own definition of success.
Love that.
But, you know,
motivation
isn't always easy.
Oh, for sure.
Even for the most conscientious among us.
Yeah.
We all have those days where we just want to hit the snooze button.
Oh, yeah. And some days it wins.
It does. Yeah. But understanding the biological basis of conscientiousness can give us a new perspective on why some people...
Let's get into the brain science.
Let's dive into the brain.
Okay.
So research suggests that there are genetic and neurological factors that contribute to conscientiousness.
Okay.
So some people might just be predisposed to be more conscientious based on their genes.
Interesting.
Certain gene variations have been linked to higher levels of this trait.
Okay.
And brain imaging studies have shown that conscientious people tend to have more activity in certain areas of the prefrontal cortex, which is the part of your brain responsible for planning, decision-making, impulse control.
So their brain is like wired for it.
Yeah, it's like having a supercharged CEO running your brain.
Okay.
But of course, it's not just nature, it's nurture too.
Right.
So
it all works together.
It's this interplay between our genes, our environment, our life experiences.
Yeah.
All of it shapes who we are.
So it's not deterministic.
No, it's complex.
It's a combination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But understanding that biological basis can be helpful because it reminds us that it's not just about willpower.
Right.
You know, there might be underlying factors at play.
Okay.
And speaking of relationships, that's another area where Conscientiousness.
Let's talk about that.
Can have a big impact.
Okay.
Yeah. So, it probably won't surprise you that conscientious people are generally seen as desirable partners and friends. Yeah. They're reliable, trustworthy, committed, all qualities that are really important for healthy relationships.
Yeah. No one wants to be friends with someone who, always flakes out on plans.
Exactly. And personality NFT also highlights the link between high conscientiousness and healthy behaviors.
Oh, interesting.
Which can be a positive influence on relationships.
Okay.
So think about it. If your partner is really committed to eating healthy, exercising regularly, avoiding risky behaviors, it might inspire you to do the same.
Yeah, so they're setting a good example.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's not about being preachy or judgmental.
Right.
It's just about modeling those healthy habits and creating a positive ripple effect.
Makes sense, yeah.
And I've actually seen this play out in my own relationships.
Oh, really?
Both in positive and sometimes negative ways.
Okay, tell me more.
Yeah, so my best friend is incredibly conscientious. And it's amazing. She's always there for me. She remembers every important date. She's the most dependable person I know.
It's awesome.
But she can also be a little bit too critical of herself and others.
Oh, okay.
Which can sometimes lead to conflict. It's like she holds herself to such high standards that she expects everyone else to operate at that same level.
Right.
Which isn't always realistic.
Yeah, everyone's different.
Exactly.
Right.
But overall, I think it's safe to say that conscientiousness is generally a positive thing in relationships.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So we talked about love. We talked about friendship. What about careers?
Careers, yeah.
What are the best jobs?
That's a good question.
For someone who is highly conscientious.
Oh, yeah.
Does personality NFT give us any insight on that?
They do. They actually have a whole list of suitable careers.
Okay.
But I think the main takeaway is that highly conscientious people tend to thrive in roles that require attention to detail, organization, and a strong work ethic.
Makes sense.
So think about fields like accounting, project management, healthcare, law enforcement, anything that involves accuracy and responsibility.
You wouldn't want a surgeon who's, not detail-oriented.
No, definitely not. But it's also important in creative fields, too.
Oh,
even artists, musicians, entrepreneurs.
Right.
They need a certain level of self-discipline and organization to bring their visions to life.
To actually, make it happen.
Exactly. And then conscientiousness can be really valuable in leadership.
Oh, interesting.
So these individuals are often naturally drawn to leadership positions. Because they're driven, they're organized, they're good at inspiring others.
So they make good managers.
Yeah, they're the ones who keep the ship running smoothly, no matter what storms they might encounter.
They're prepared.
Exactly. They set clear expectations, delegate effectively, create a culture of accountability.
Yeah.
But of course...
Is there a downside to that, too?
There can be.
Okay.
If someone's too focused on rules and procedures... it can stifle innovation, and it can make it hard to adapt to changing circumstances.
Makes sense.
And if they're too critical or demanding, it can create a stressful work environment and lead to burnout.
Yeah, too much of a good thing.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's all about finding that sweet spot.
Right.
Oh.
So we've established conscientiousness can benefit your relationships.
Yeah.
It can benefit your career. But what about the bigger picture?
Oh.
Does it actually impact
the big picture?
How long you live?
Yeah.
How well you live?
That's a really interesting question.
Right. Does being conscientious
then it's something
actually make you healthier?
That researchers have been exploring for decades.
Okay.
And it turns out that there is a correlation between conscientiousness and things like health, well-being, and even lifespan.
So it can help you live longer.
It seems that way.
Wow, that's crazy.
But of course, correlation doesn't equal causation.
Right, just because they're related doesn't mean that one causes the other.
There could be other factors at play, but there are some pretty compelling explanations for why conscientious people tend to have better health outcomes. One thing is they're more likely to engage in healthy behaviors.
Okay.
So... they're prioritizing exercise, eating a balanced diet, getting enough sleep, avoiding risky things like smoking or excessive drinking.
Right.
So it's not...
So their choices lead to...
It influences their choices
outcomes
and their habits.
Okay.
And then there's also a strong link between conscientiousness and stress management.
Oh.
Highly conscientious people tend to be better at coping with stress.
Right, because they're...
Which we know.
Probably planning ahead and not as overwhelmed.
They're anticipating challenges.
Okay, that makes sense.
Creating systems to manage them.
So conscientiousness can actually help you deal with the ups and downs of life better.
It can be a real asset.
Okay.
But it's not a guarantee. Right.
Good health isn't guaranteed no matter how conscientious you are.
Of course, there's so many other factors.
There are so many factors.
Okay.
Genetics, environment, access to health care, even just luck.
Right.
Plays a role.
That's not a magic bullet.
No.
But it definitely helps.
It's a powerful tool in the toolkit.
Okay, so we've talked about how this trait can benefit us in so many ways. But for those of us who maybe weren't born with that high level of conscientiousness, can we actually change it?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And the answer is it's complicated.
Okay.
Research suggests that conscientiousness is relatively stable over time. It's part of our core personality.
Okay.
It's shaped by our genes and early experiences and cultural influences.
So if I'm a chronic procrastinator, am I just out of luck?
Not at all.
Okay.
While our baseline level might be stable, it's not fixed.
Okay.
There's definitely room.
So there's hope. There's hope. There's always hope.
Okay, good. I like that.
For growth and change, especially if you're willing to put in the effort.
Okay, so what does personality NFT say about that? How can we actually boost our conscientiousness?
They highlight that personal development strategies can be incredibly effective.
Okay.
It's not about trying to become a totally different person.
Right.
It's about identifying those areas where you want to improve and then making conscious, consistent efforts to cultivate those qualities.
So building a muscle.
Yeah, exactly.
The more you do it,
the more you practice,
the better you get at it.
The stronger it gets. And just like with physical exercise, it's about starting small.
Right.
And gradually increasing the intensity.
Gotcha.
So don't try to overhaul your entire personality overnight.
Okay.
Focus on setting realistic, achievable goals.
So instead of saying, I'm going to be the most organized person on the planet, I might just say, I'm going to organize.
I'm going to clean out this drawer.
This one drawer this week.
Exactly. Break it down into manageable steps that you can actually stick to.
Makes sense.
And celebrate those small wins along the way.
Right.
That sense of accomplishment will fuel your motivation to keep going.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, so we've got setting goals. What else?
They also emphasize the power of building positive habits.
Okay.
So instead of relying on willpower alone, which can be fickle, you want to create systems that support your goals.
Okay.
So for example, if you want to be more punctual, set reminders on your phone. Get a reliable alarm clock.
Okay.
If you want to be more organized, create a designated workspace. Establish a system for filing documents.
So you're setting yourself up for success.
Exactly. And then another powerful technique is mindfulness.
Mindfulness, okay.
So practicing things like mindfulness meditation or other mindfulness exercises can help you become more aware of your thoughts and feelings and impulses.
Right.
Which then
so instead of just
gives you more control.
Reacting.
Exactly.
You're taking that pause.
Giving a second.
To consider your choices.
Okay.
And their consequences.
That makes sense.
So that's hitting the pause button on autopilot.
Right.
And giving yourself that space to choose a more intentional response.
Okay, I like that. So we've got setting goals, we've got habits, we've got mindfulness. Is there anything else?
One more thing is to surround yourself with other conscientious people.
Oh, interesting.
They're positive.
So find your friends.
Yeah, find those friends.
Who are always on top of it.
Who are always on top of things.
And let their good habits rub off on you.
Exactly. Their positive influence can rub off on you.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it.
Whether it's a friend, a family member, a therapist, a coach.
Yeah. Having that support system.
Having a support system can make a world of difference.
Okay, so the takeaway here is that we can't just become a highly conscientious person overnight.
It's a process.
Right.
It takes time and effort. With the right strategy.
With the right strategy.
You get there.
You could definitely cultivate this trait and see the benefits.
Awesome. I like that. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground here today.
I think so too.
In this conscientiousness deep dive.
A lot of ground.
We've explored its many facets, how it impacts our lives, and even how we can work on developing
That's
it.
exactly.
So this deep dive was inspired by a really cool article from Personality NFT.
Definitely check them out.
So I encourage you guys to check out their website.
They have tons of great resources
for more insights into the world of personality.
And until next time, that's it for today, Beep Divers.
Keep those minds curious.
See you in our next adventure.